Needle fiber is so good. It's so stupid.
What is this?
It's an F.
An F. Right. What did I say about you getting an F?
That you will love me and let me continue playing Yu-Gi-Oh?
Very funny. Now, give me your deck. I'm taking away your needle fiber.
Oh, but Dad.
And your binder. Come on, come on.
I can't combo without needle fiber.
If you can't top 8 in school with needle fiber, then what good is it? You might as well learn how to combo without it. So I'm taking these with me right now.
And who are these people that you see on the internet?
Wasting your time.
Hey guys, it's Tom Box. Welcome to MST.TV. As you've seen, Dad Box took away my Krishna Clifford Brax because I don't deserve it. I failed my test. So now I have to learn how to play without comboing. Thanks. On the side note here, can you imagine if your parents actually just took away certain pieces of your deck before sending you off to locals? Like, they don't even tell you, but they're disciplining you, so they want you to feel embarrassed. So right when you're about to combo off, you realize you don't have a Krishna Clifford Brax and you can't do your combo. That'd be so funny. Oh my god. New level of Yu-Gi-Oh parenting, guys. Oh, that would be so nasty. But anyways, this video, we're jumping into how do you play, how do you win without using these nasty combos. I'm actually going to try it out with Generators. I know you guys have asked me to deal with a Generator deck for some time now, so I've got a deck profile for you guys to try out. I think this has been my most successful one to deal with these meta decks, so I'll explain the card for card as I go and some of my ratios. Some of you guys might not even agree with the ratios I'm going for, and that's okay. I'll explain it, and whether you like it or not, well, that's up to you. And I got some replays at the end because this isn't a combo deck, so what's the point of showing you guys a combo? I guess there's one combo, which is the Yugioh opening play combo. Aside from that, we'll jump into some really fun replays. I think these are some of the best replays I've got for this particular deck, even against like Synchro Eldritch. So, you know what? Let's just jump into this deck profile, guys. Okay, so for this profile, we have a main deck and an extra deck. As for side deck, might do an ultimate counter deck, just group it all in one place about what's meta, why do you side certain cards, and I don't have to really talk about the synergies of what works with your own deck. I know most side deck cards, they don't synergize very well, but there are some side deck cards that are even worse because you can't really activate them effectively later on, so you get a lot more dead draws. But that's for that particular segment. We're gonna go over the main deck and the extra deck and talk about the interactions within the current meta. Of course, we got that replay, and I'll show you one combo. The only combo I'll showcase is probably the Yugioh combo because that's the only combo you have. This is a control-based deck, not too much to combo. Just adapt to your situations, and the best combo players are the ones that are most adaptive with their deck. Starting off with the triple Yugioh, here's the controversial part about this profile is that this deck is quite expensive for what it is. You have to be a really big fan of Generators, enjoying to play the control-based playstyle, and not enjoy Eldritch to really like this deck. Unless you really like just having boss monsters, like feeling like a Mega Man kind of deal where you have the robot masters. Cool. But anyways, triple Yugioh because this is your Foolish Barrel and this is the only way you can guarantee your opening play with the combo. So with that, we have Yugioh, which goes into the Fusion Trish. Fusion Trish eventually leads to the whole play anyways, a whole shebang. But personally, I want to cut one of them out. In fact, most of my replays I'm going to showcase at the end actually only play 2 copies because of the way that the meta has adapted. Everyone's playing their effect failures, they're playing Ash, they're playing Imperm, and getting this card Ash or Imperm really stuns and really hurts. With that being said, of course we have to dump our card, which is World Legacy, World Armor. This one lets you fetch back another card when you summon it back from the grave. So we're going to live to this, and then I'll just show you at the end. Next, we have a card that is controversial to you guys. Why are you running both of these cards? Yes, I know some of you guys, like, you either play Yugioh or you play the Condemned Witch. You don't play both. I'm choosing to play both because I cut back on one of the Yugioh personally. This is a 41 card deck, which is why it's possible, by the way. And this lets you search for Forbidden Chalice. And what I really like about this is because this interacts with your opponent through a duration of multiple turns. Rather than just starting with, you summon this card out, of course you get to add the Forbidden Chalice, which is pretty good because you get basically a negation against your opponent similar to Imperm. Sure, you boost them, or you can even use the boost to actually boost one of your monsters to run over your opponent's cards. It matters with the Utgard versus the Eldritch Golden Lord effect, or the battle between those two, because that's the slight timing that you really need against your opponent. But aside from that, the timing is what is key here, because on the summon, if they negate it, cool, they've just negated the ability to search a card. But they have to negate it like for a longer duration to be really successful, because this card can turn into a Lopter during your opponent's main phase, and then that means they didn't really get a full effect negation on this card. Versus Girzu, you negate the Girzu, Girzu just sits there. So that's why I really like this one. And of course, this is a quick effect, so the timing is very effective against your opponent. So it's really good dodging stuff as well, which is why I still like this card over just playing Girzu. And I know, running both, like what if you draw both? Then look at the situation and adapt to the rest of your hand. That's my best advice for you right now. Okay, so yeah, run 2 of these, and of course I'll have a Forbidden Chalice to give me an additional negation on that. Next, okay, we're finally going to the Generator stuff. Of course, you have to play Generaider Lopter, the Boss Shadow, because he's the key card. He boosts all your guys by 1,000 in your opponent's turn. And quick effect, again, a lot of these cards, they activate during the main phase only. If you don't want to lose, make sure you use your card effects at the right timing. Condemn Witch, Lopter, I think IP Masquerena, all of those are all main phase based cards, and if you don't use them at the right timing, the battle phase will just completely end you. So you have to make sure you know the rules of your own cards, and this is really important because quick effect to tag into any of your generators. And now onto the boss lineup. Okay, this is the part that really matters here. Har is your Omni Negator, which is really nice, requires 2 tributes. Adgarda is your Omni Spot Remover, really good because it banishes, it does target, which is okay. It's still pretty big. Like the thing about this deck is that the body stat line is really big. And I think these are the 3 key monsters for, I guess, having total domination against your opponent. Nidhogg was cut for a long time until everyone started to play a lot of synchros, so this is the card that you want to use to kill their Crystron Clifford Brax, because if you negate the summon, they don't even get to summon out the monster, basically you can kind of end their turn, which is why I really like it. So tag it out. When you see the tuner and the monster, you can bring this card out instead of going for Har. It's just that fun. Or if you want to be a bit more flexible, you're not too sure what your opponent has, then you can go for the Adgarda. This is how you adapt to your matchups. All right, so this is more of your control-based lineup, and you can focus on reviving these cards. Of course, Har is really awesome because if they add a card to their hand, they have to put another card back into the graveyard. So it's kind of got that timing similar to Mascure or Darklaw, but rather than banishing a card, of course, it's a send to the grave. All right, moving on. Okay, so these are the first line of bosses. Of course, 2 Hars because Omni Negate is really good, and it's also one of your biggest beat sticks as well. We have a Protection, Naglfar. I didn't play this before. You don't have to play if you don't want to, but I use this to kind of stop people from blowing up my back row. Back row is so important. If they go Lightning Storm on you, Naglfar can just tag out from Lopter, and then boom, you're good to go. Because the timing for you to have Lopter and Naglfar is always going to be faster than your opponent Lightning Storming you, because you're doing it during standby and draw phase. And that's why it's really good. And once you get to that main phase of the Lightning Storm, you chain Lopter, tribute one of your tokens, summon out Naglfar. If they're going for the back, because they have to declare what they're going to pop, they're basically going to lose out on most of those cards. So that's pretty nice. But if they choose to pop all your tokens, ooh, that's going to be a bit harder because you can't use the Destruction Substitution. But at least you still have your back row. So you got that going for you. But okay, for the last few cards, we have Mardell and Hela. I only run 1 Mardell. You don't really need to run multiples, in my opinion, because you don't really want to draw into too many of these cards, especially Mardell. They don't really offer you any benefits, which is why I mentioned, I'm not sure if I mentioned this earlier, but if you draw into more and more cards, say with Extravagance, it doesn't really matter, because if you draw into bosses, you need the Earth Machine to bring them all out. Otherwise, they're just dead cards in your hand, and I'm not exactly a big fan of that. So I'm focused more on grave summoning, and that's why I've seen like 9 Lives Cat as one of my extra deck cards. You have to run 9 Lives Cat because I've seen anyone that's smart enough, they usually just banish this card. If they use like any sort of great extra deck removal, they usually hit the 9 Lives Cat to get rid of it, because it's the long-term grind that this card makes it really difficult. So you got Hela, that's really cool. So we have Mardell to search your cards. Okay, so that's basically the entire Generator boss lineup, and most of these effects are quick effects, or they have a really good timing so that your opponent has a difficult time dealing with it. On to some of the bosses. We have Trias, Hierarchia. This card is amazing. Don't forget, it's not just in your hand that this card can activate. It can activate in the graveyard, and that's where some of my opponents kind of forgot. But remember, when you do summon it from the graveyard from your hand using the Tributing Fairy effect, remember all the Generator tokens are fairy, which is why I run this. This card gives you an additional interaction against your opponent, because if you tribute 2, you get to pop a card. Tribute 1, you already got you generate a free body. So I always tend to use the Trias Hirachia to make my Xyz plays because I put it back in the graveyard, and that's where they miscalculate their plays, because then when you summon in a bunch of tokens again and you go to Trias again, you'll pop more cards. And of course, if you tribute 3, you get to pop 1 card and draw 2 cards, so it lets you replenish, which is pretty nice. Drawing into hand traps is pretty nice, which is why you can run hand traps in this deck. I recommend running hand traps anyway. Just remember, it gets banished if you do get rid of it by linking it off, but if you overlay with it, it's still good, which is why you can run a fairly decent amount of overlays. I like this because it's just a hidden interaction against your opponent. You can use it like a hand trap, so in other words, it's just good because you need a decent amount of hand traps against your opponent. And this is like an Omni Ogre, in my opinion, because you can hit anything. It doesn't have to hit the thing that activates. Okay, for hand traps, triple Ash. That's it. I'm not running any more hand traps aside from that. Okay, so onto spells. Terraforming, of course, we got the Generator spells. I only have 2 copies, unfortunately, and therefore I have to use my Worlds Box OCG copy for the last one. But yeah, I should play triple, because if you lose one, if they banish one, it sucks. It hurts. And if you have 2, you can still cycle between your boss fights, but if you only have down to 1, your boss fights are all dead, and you just have to live with it. And it's very difficult. 1 boss quest. You don't need any more than 1 boss quest. Before, in older builds, perhaps you might see people play 3. You really don't need more than just 1. Honestly, this is mainly there to shuffle stuff back to dig for your double trap. If you're opening your play, then yes, you would go for the field spell and the boss room, so you don't give your opponent an additional card. But the traps themselves aren't bad. They're just e-tellies. They're just free monsters. Sure, your opponent gets to draw a card, but if you have Har on the field, then they don't really get to keep that card that they draw either way, because they have to maintain hand size due to the effect. But you just need 1. You just need to search it once. If you have a handful of this, what are you going to do with it? They're dead. They don't do anything. They fixed your hand, and you can search this card to fix your hand through Mardell. And that's where the key is. Mardell searches this card, and that's about it. Okay, on for Kuchikiri Curse. Because I'm playing a bit more grave-centric, I don't mind throwing stuff into the graveyard, and ideally, your target is going to be Trias, because Trias in the grave or in your hand, the same thing, really, aside from the fact that you can get called by the grave, but when you activate this card, tribute a bunch of tokens, it's really, really handy, and you get to draw 2 cards. So basically, it's a plus, well, it's not really a +1, but if you consider the Trias, then it'll be a +1. Next, moving on, 1 Forbidden Chalice, because we get to search it with our Condemned Witch. We have triple Monstrosity, because Monstrosity lets you summon out 2, and it's nice to actually have that negation against your opponent. It's just all around useful in general, and you can make VFD against your opponent early on if you have this in your hand. Of course, we have 1 Succession for the Orcus combo. As for spells, we have, of course, Dark Ruler No More. This deck does struggle against a lot of the monster-based negation, and to deal with it, we have monster Dark Ruler No More, the all-around negator, and that's it for the spells. Now we have play 5 traps. These 5 traps are all well-timed against your opponent. We have Boss Fight, gives you the field spell, because you need the field spell. So I have 7 ways of getting the field spell. You have 3 copies of the field spells. We have 1 copy of Terraforming and triple Boss Fight. Technically, I have an 8th copy to get the field spell, which is to use the boss quest to get that piece. But this is really, really effective. Once your opponent thinks that they've burned off all your cards, like you've tributed a bunch of tokens, you got like 2 monsters left, they know the effects are dead, you can use a boss fight to summon out their last interaction against your opponent and completely end them. That's what it's actually come up to many, many times. They just don't recall this card being very effective, and it really just cost them the game at that point. So yeah, there's that. Whew. Anyways, last 2 cards. Let's just put 1 World Legacy Awakening. This is my personal tech choice. I enjoy it because you can also add this card with Lib if you already have the correct card in your hand, and it gives you access to IP Masquerade against your opponent, and that means you have another interaction against your opponent at the cost of their timing. If they Dark Ruler No More your board, it hurts, but if they Dark Ruler No More your board and you then after the effect goes through, and then you use World Legacy Awakens, you turn 2 of your cards into IP Masquerade. Now they face the threat that potentially there's going to be a giant BLS, or maybe there's going to be a copy of Unicorn to interact with them, and they are not going to enjoy that because they thought everything was going to be free play and they can't even deal damage to you anymore. So that's pretty rough for them. And of course, Boss Room to interact with anything that activates against you. So Ashes, any type of the reactive hand traps, really good to counter them. I use this to counter against Call by the Grave, because they try to banish stuff from the graveyard because you're trying to revive something. You'd be like, Generator, boss room, discard a card, and yeah, now we both draw a card, and my field spell is going to generate another monster. So that's why boss room is super, super key. Anyone that knows how to play against Generators, here's the weakness. Kill the boss room so that your interaction against them is a lot easier, and they usually only run one copy because it's a pretty dead card in general. Aside from that, that's the entire main deck. All right, let's jump into extra deck. Let's start with the Xyz monster first, because I think they're the most important part of this category. We have 9 Lives Cat. I almost want to play 2 copies of this, but let's face it, there's other utility that's kind of more important, and the extra deck is kind of tight. I'm not playing Pot of Extravagance, but this deck is quite expensive for, I guess, a non-tier 1 deck. Okay, so 9 Lives Cat, you just have to play this card. It is the best card for your deck. It revives any of your boss monsters. Not only does it revive your boss monsters, it revives your opponent's monsters. Just take away your opponent's Eldritches. It's really funny. Yeah, I'm not kidding. It's pretty funny to do that against them. And remember, while this card is on the field, anything that's summoned out from the graveyard, I believe they cannot be targeted. Yeah, your opponent cannot target other monsters you control that were special summoned from the graveyard. That's why you can use this to revive Hela. You can do a bunch of chain reaction summoning this to revive Hela. Hela can actually tribute this card off and summon another card out. So you can actually cycle 9 Lives Cat if you really wanted to. Next, we have Jormungandr. In a simplified game state, this card will just win you all your games. It's just because they won't be able to maintain anything in their hand. You'll be eating up all their monsters, so it's really just painful for them. I do recommend running one because it also has a quick effect to kind of absorb stuff. So it constantly boosts its own attack by 1,000 at a time. It's pretty decent. I like it. Of course, 2 True Kings of All Calamities, VFD. If you don't run this card, it's okay. Honestly, I know this card can just win you the game. Against like Adamantipator, ooh, Earth. Okay, game's over. That's great. Oh, you can run against, I guess, dinosaurs. It's called Dark, and maybe they'll be stunned out. There's just a lot of ways to actually play against your opponent with this card. And 1 copy of a Phantom Fortress and Terblithneer. This card, just utility, honestly. It's also pretty big. A lot of these monsters are pretty big, except for 9 Lives Cat. 9 Lives Cat, man, I don't know what I would do without you, because you just kept me in the game so many more times than I thought I would be. So this is the reason why I don't run the Earth guy anymore. I'm playing a little bit more Grave-centric. Okay, so that's that. Now for our only fusion, we have Trishula, because we can actually make it with the Link Cross combo. We have the Link Karibo, we have our Lib. These are the 2 cards you need for your opening play with the Girzu, and of course Link Cross as well. So this is how you get your first Trish out onto the field. So you get your level 9 and you'll get your Monstrosity. That's going to open up the play for you to activate the Monstrosity. And you want Monstrosity in your hand so you can activate it. So there's that. Next, we have utility cards. This card is just very useful if you can use your tokens, especially during your opponent's turn using World Legacy Awakens. This is really good because all it requires is 2 non-link monsters. All your tokens are non-link, so it doesn't really matter. You get a free IP Masquerena just for the extra flexibility. This, like, Awakens is almost like a Trias Haratia because of the fact that you get to use your tokens effectively, and then you'll have to be very careful. Because if you have 2 generator interactions, you have to count your interactions here. If you have 2 generator interactions, you have to count how many bodies you're going to lose along the way. And you can still use the body of the generator, but if you want to go into some big bosses, you have to keep in mind how you're going to use this IP Masquerena. Of course, we have Nightmare Unicorn, Nightmare Phoenix, Nightmare Package, and our final 3 bosses. BLS. This card is your saving grace against dinosaurs. Dinosaurs is probably one of your worst matchup because you generate so many tokens, and guess what? Ultimate Conductor Tyranno can just OTK right through that. Yeah, because each token that they attacks through is exactly 2,000 damage per hit. It's pretty bad. So first off, they're gonna hit off your Lopter, and then everything's at 15. And since it's at 35, it's 2k, 2k, 2k. It's an instant OTK. That's why you're gonna need something like BLS. You gotta get rid of all your tokens, which is why this is important. And I don't want to die to that. Then we also have 1 Axis Code Talker, and we have a copy of Appaloosa, just in case we have a lot of bodies left on the field. Appaloosa is a little bit harder to use. Axis Code Talker, way easier to use. These 2 are your biggest boss monsters. If you get to that point where you need to pop your opponent's cards, it's good for you if you get here. But this is really easy to get into. And if you go to BLS, Soldier of Chaos, the first thing you should do is obviously boost the attack. All right, just boost it. The Ultimate Conductor Tyrannos cannot attack through this ever, which is really nice. If you have this and you have all the control against your opponent, it can't do very much against you, especially when you have the timing in the battle phase. And that's the extra deck. Okay, let's go into the quick combo and then we'll look into some of the games. Okay, this combo is fairly simple. All you need is a Yugioh, so it is a 1-card combo, and any additional cards can be extenders. So what we have right here is this. We have Yugioh, this is the extender. Any World Legacy card that is not Succession, I guess, could be considered as an extender. It can really be worked around. This will give you the access to IP Masquerade as long as you have any World Legacy cards. And we'll have the Ash Blossoms available as well. These are just extra cards. In fact, if you had the field spell already, you can use the Yugioh as a bait and then play through your turn, which is why it's hard for someone to actually time this out, right? Because they have to take a guess. I like it when someone has to take a 50-50 guess against your play. Starting off with the Yugioh, starting off with the normal summon, and the normal summon effect, we're going to send to the graveyard a World Legacy monster, World Legacy World Armor, because when this card is special summon, you get to add a World Legacy card to your hand. So now use the effect of Yugioh. Yugioh is going to be able to summon out a token to both sides of the field. So we're going to use these 2 tokens, so they're the same. So 1 token here, 1 token here. Your opponent gets a token regardless. We'll get rid of it later on when we link it off. And next, we're going to link off our token into Karibo. You don't have to do this step, but doing this step makes sure that you'll have a more useful monster against your opponent later on, rather than just having a blank token or a 25 body. No, you won't even have the 25 body if you don't do this link Karibo step, but it doesn't stop you from finishing your combo. Next, take your Yugioh and your link Karibo, link them off, and go for the Lib. Because we have the World Legacy World Armor in the graveyard, we can summon out Lib, because that's the only requirement to summon out the Lib from the extra deck. So with that, we can activate the Lib. That's an activated effect, and we're going to set onto the field a World Legacy spell onto the field. That's what I meant. And we're going to set it. We're going to go for Succession. That's the key one that you have to go for at this particular point. If you already had the Succession, then feel free to set the Awakening. This is why this is the additional card. As long as you have any of the cards, you have an additional free extender. But if you don't have Succession, you have to go for Succession at this particular point. And okay, we're going to set this, and we can activate this as long as we have a World Legacy monster, which we do. So we're going to activate it and summon back the World Legacy World Armor, and that's going to allow us to search another card. And in that case, we get the Monstrosity or the Awakens if you already have it. So either or, whatever that you're missing, go for that particular piece. Then this is in your hand, and you don't really have anything else to do. Next, we're going to link this card off, and we're going to summon out the Link Cross. That's right, this deck is getting kind of pricey if you start to look at the things when they start to add up. So Link Cross, you did link it off, so you're going to go with Chain Link 1, the Link Cross, Chain Link 2, the Lib. Lib is going to get rid of that token off of your opponent's side. Unless you want to prevent them from like evenly matching you or something, then you probably leave it on the field. But aside from that, you don't really have to care about that token. And now we're generating 2 tokens as well, so let's just generate 2 of the same tokens here. There are a bunch of level 1 tokens. Now we're going to activate our Link Karibo in the graveyard, tripping off the level 1 token, summoning out the Link Karibo back onto the field. This generates 3 names for us, and 3 names that are different means that we can go into our Trish. So your choice here. This has no real effect because you can't really use this card to balance any extra deck monster because this is not normal summon or set. This is special summon from the graveyard, so we can get rid of this. It's just additional body. In fact, we want to keep as many spaces open as possible for the field spell. So let's just get rid of these 3. All right, so this is banish, banish, and banish. All right, so we banish all of these, and we can summon out our Trishula. All right, so now that we have our Trish, this doesn't really do anything because it's just level 9, if anything, and the key thing here is we didn't use any dragons, so that doesn't really matter. Now we can activate this World Legacy Monstrosity that we added to our hand, target the Trish, and we're going to summon out 2 monsters. I guess what you should try to go for is probably a Mardell and a copy of... I guess this part here is kind of preference, but I think the one that synergizes best is the Har. The reason why you need these 2 is this way you can actually negate stuff in case your opponent does try to do something crazy against you. You can still form that negation. Now the Mardell now can activate. Of course, it was summoned out, and now you can do something. Now if you're missing something, then go for it. If you have a handful of Generators, you need to get rid of it, then go for the Boss Quest, which is why you only need 1 copy of Boss Quest. But in my particular hand, I'd rather just get the field spell personally because it just makes it really annoying for my opponent. And yeah, let's go for the field spell for this one. So now I have the field spell, or I can go ahead and activate the field spell without it getting disrupted because I still have the Horror on the field. And now that that's live, you can just take all... These are gonna die, okay? These are just gonna die because it's summoned out from Monstrosity. You can just take all 3 of them and make a VFD. True King of all calamities, because it's 2+ level 9 monsters, not just 2. So you can use all of them and opening up your entire zoning for your field spell to go off, which is really nice. I'll set this card, and so when you pass turn to your opponent, they draw for turn. That's going to trigger off your boss stage, and boss stage is going to summon out your Lopter. So now we summon up the Lopter, and that's going to generate a bunch of tokens for you. You're going to get 3 tokens in attack position. And even before all of this, you can go ahead, if you're really afraid of like Nibiru just crushing out your board, then just go ahead and activate Detach, called Light. Now light monsters can't activate their effects on your opponent's side anyway. And with that, once you go to the main phase, they do any sort of action. You can activate Lopter and just tribute out the token. Now what I detached was the Har, so if you want to maximize the amount of bodies and make sure that your next turn has the maximum amount of threats, then you will go for the Hela, and then Hela's quick effect, tribute the token, summon out the Har. Now you have a negation, they're stuck under this, and you have a negation, and you can even go into IP Masquerade if you really need to. Okay, so for my match reviews, I have 2 games and a match where I have one against Synchro Eldritch, and I have 2 bad matchups, which would be Dinosaurs, and I guess one's kind of more of a 50-50, which is Necroface, because Necroface, Grand Maju, I generate tokens for you guys to punch, which is why it's a bad matchup, because I have easy OTKs for them to kill me with. Yeah, that part really sucks, but starting off with the Dinosaur one, because Dinosaur has UCT with me with the field spell is an instant death, but this is how this one kind of played out. So play by play, the key plays, we have the Orcus opening. Key thing to note is that I forgot to put in Lib in my extra deck, which is why I finished the board with an IP Masquerade. Set 3 pass, I have a boss fight. Boss fight, I'm using it right away just so I can generate an extra body, and so the IP Masquerade has someone to play with. He goes with the Twin Twister. I was really worried he was going to go for the field spell, but he thought I had a boss room, so he went for the back row instead. I guess that's not too bad, but either way, I got to keep everything, and that was misplay number 1. That was a 50-50 guess for him. And I hold the Har. Har gets to rip a card instead, gets rid of the token. Now he activates his Miscellaneous. In the graveyard activation, since it's not in the field, I can negate it with Har since it is still affected by monster effects. And now he goes ahead and adds the card to his hand. He's trying to go into the battle phase. I switch out my IP Masquerade for Big Boy Blackluster Soldier. And as long as this can successfully attack, this is good for me because now he will no longer be able to win. And this Blackluster Soldier cannot be destroyed by card effects and cannot be targeted. So now I'll go for that big swing, and I'm boosting it by 45. That's key here because none of his cards can actually run this card over anymore and cannot be targeted, which makes it a very sticky monster on the field. So now it's his turn. Draw, set up. I don't think there's very much you can do because I have full control now. Use this Call by the Grave. I chain my copy of Boss Room so that the Call by the Grave does not go through. I can keep most of my card effects and have a guardian to interact with him. The key thing here is his interaction is also in the main phase. My interaction usually is in the main phase, but I can always put my interaction into the battle phase, which will keep me alive. Because UCT, he's threatening lethal at this point. And in fact, I was waiting for him to clear off the monster just so that I can activate a boss fight, switch it up, summon out a Hela, and then use Hela's effect, tribute off one of my Generators, summon out a Garda tribute the token to get rid of that so I don't have to get punched to death. And that was a very key interaction because he doesn't have any protection during the battle phase, and therefore I can actually banish his card. That was very important. And now he goes into a Borosword trying to recover off of this play. Not as easy as it seems because I can obviously use Agarda to banish that Borosword Dragon. And I draw into my turn. I'm going to use the effect, get rid of my cards. He's going to try again with the Call by the Grave. I still have the boss room up, and that's not going to fly. It gets both of us draw a card. I get Har. I forgot to activate Har to put a card into his graveyard, which is fine. Now going to 9 Lives Cat. 9 Lives Cat revives the Hela, and I think I can already punch him for game at this point. So I'm just trying to keep myself alive so that I can interact with him next turn just in case. So that's how this Dinosaur matchup went through. Like, the strongest phase is the main phase. I had to dominate him in the battle phase with the interaction that he can't really chain with, and that's where Generators are so strong. Generator setup play requires the main phase, but Generator interaction and control happens during any phase, and that's key there. This is, again, I forgot to go in and put in the card in my extract. Luckily, this time it doesn't matter as much because I don't have the Yugioh in my hand this time, so let's just kick this one off. Okay, so starting off with this particular play, I use Terraforming. Terraforming, go with the field spell. I used QG characters to throw Hela into the graveyard. That was a slight mistake on my part because I didn't read Trias at the time, but I think it's okay because you can still use 9 lives to revive Hela. Hela can lead into like a multiple revival, and I start off with the multiple field spell. He uses the mind control instead of Kaiju. That was his misplay. Should have went with the Kaiju first. I go with the Naglfire. I'm really afraid of all my cards getting destroyed at this point, so I went with the Naglfire, and perhaps if I can keep all the tokens alive, it's good for me. But he goes with the Pot of Desires. Kaiju's my other monster, and it leaves me with 3 tokens. That was probably his biggest mistake because Trias, of course, when you have 3, gives you that quick effect in the main phase where you can tribute all of them and pop a card, draw 2 cards, and that also works in the graveyard. I think he should have just punched this one instead of get rid of that because that's going to be a bigger threat, but instead he goes with the kill with the field spell, which is still good with the Nightmare Phoenix. But he cleared off most of his board, he doesn't really have too much going on, and I'm going to use my War Legacy monstrosity, summon out a bunch of boss monster, going to 9 lives cat, 9 lives cat, go with the Hela. Hela can continue tributing itself, going for the Mardell. Mardell now can add the boss quest. Boss quest can lead into putting back the Utgarda, and now I can play with field spell, and this is good. Now we'll go with the Ormingonder. Ormingonder lets me attach some of his monster, boosting up my attack, which is still good. I can still run over that Phoenix, and I can still run over with another 3,000 damage, which is good for me, and I can actually generate a ton of fairies onto the field, which gives me a lot of control. I'm still very much scared of the Grand Magi Deiza because the Grand Magi Deiza still gets his punch. I'm still dead, and well, now he's gonna go with another copy of that. He has a Cosmic Cyclone, Monster Reborn. Monster Reborn was such a clutch card because he can try to punch. I got rid of my Utgarda, and now I got rid of my token and my Lopter because they're both fairies, and I get to pop his Grand Magi Deiza, surviving that turn because otherwise I think I'm dead. He can punch through the Gamseal and I would die. That's why there's so many big threats. Again, you gotta play with the interactions that you have. That's why Trias is that surprise interaction because think about all the interactions you have with Generators. You have the Banish, but that's once per turn. You have the Negation, that's once per turn. So you need spot removal, and Trias is one of those spot removals as well as Utgarda. As long as you can balance between the two. In fact, they don't even need to interact with each other. It's still good. And for our match here, we're playing against Synchro Elders. This is a full match. I guess he didn't really know I was recording, so we're gonna go through this. Starting with, this time I actually fixed my extra deck, and this is the problem. I was really afraid of getting Veiler, but luckily Veiler can be baited out for the boss fight at boss room, and I'm gonna summon out my Lopter. Lopter is gonna generate 3 tokens. The part that I don't like about Gears is that it's eating up one of my zones. Okay, passing into the main phase, it goes to Jet Synchron. I'm like, I see a Jet Synchron, I'm going straight into Nidhogg. It's okay. As long as it's not Crystron, I don't really care. As long as it's not Cleaverback, there's his token. Cleaverback, let's get that negated. So the summon has been negated, sets 3 cards. He's got everything almost. Yeah, he's got everything to play his cards. He goes with the Golden Land. I chain this. I can Ash that. So this is going to make us draw cards so that he doesn't summon out the Conquistador and he doesn't get his Golden Lord. So you got to shut everything out. In fact, Boss Room is probably one of the cards that you hate the most. And I'm going to pause right here. The reason why is because whenever they try to do their combo of the double trap, they chain one to the other. It's because it's the safest way of doing it. And but when you play against Generators, you have to keep in mind that the Boss Room can interrupt that. It will kill off your Conquistador. The effect will still resolve. You can't activate anymore. That's a pretty big deal. Continuing this play, now we're going to 9 lives cat. 9 lives cat will revive the Nidhogg because this is so key now. Now that I know you're playing a synchro-based deck, I want to keep this on the field as long as I can, and I want to maximize the amount of cards I can control onto the field. Now I summon out hard directly because I already have Lopter. Remember, you can't share the same name, and now we have enough to negate everything. Now to put up a token again. Now go for a guard. Now this is just gonna get negated again. I'm never gonna let that setup go through. He puts out his Golden Land Forever for a counter trap. I'm like, nope, not gonna let that sit either. Getting rid of everything I can. He still has 2 Hakeros, and he also have again another Sanguine Elixir. And he goes with again the double chain here, and now go with the Ash. As long as you have Ash, which is why Ash is so good against that matchup. When that card doesn't summon, what are you going to do? You need a Call with the Grave to really stop that Ash. And now, again, I've reset the board so that to the point where he can't do anything. He's under this constant cycle. Now get the World Dizzy Succession. Now I can actually play through this board properly. And I think I can just try to OTK him at this point. So, go Link Cross. I feel like this might have been a slight overextension. Of course, Lib, whenever it's linked off, you can just get rid of it. Of course, we can just punch for game right now. I guess he wasn't really familiar with his matchup just yet, so now we go into game 2, where he actually sided. So we're going to go into the game 2. We were both sided now. He sided in Summon Limit. He has his Nibiru's. I think he might have made Nibiru's in the previous game. And I believe he is also going first, but he does not have his Synchro plays available in this opening turn. So he sets 3 pass, got Nibiru, Summon Limit. Everything's kind of looking too good for him. And I start off with the Yugioh play. Yugioh play is going to go off without a hit because he's waiting for the perfect timing for that Nibiru. Maybe he could have used Summon Limit to actually stun me up, but I already have the field spell, so that's actually good on me. The bad part is I've Condemned Witch and the Chalice, which is a bad double card opening. Go into the Link Cross, this is the standard stuff. Go into the double token, and yeah, okay, here we go. Try to do the Trish. He uses the that to get rid of my level 9, generating a rather weak token on my side of the field. I still have the Monstrosity with a couple monsters in my hand, and then he changed Summon Limit and changed his own Smart Sanguine, summoning out his Golden Lord. That's the thing I tried to prevent the summon the entire game last game, but he got it out this time. This time it's going to be a harder game. Remember, now that I'm under Summon Limit, go straight for the monster that has the interaction rather than the other one that would just tag out because that's not possible. Get rid of the Nibiru because it's the strongest monster, and Eldritch can't actually run this over, so that's good for me. This is the part where it gets a little bit more interesting. He has a Conquistador on the field. I have a Forbidden Chalice that I already had in my hand. I go into battle phase. He does not use Conquistador to pop. He thought I was just baiting him out. Instead, he actually got punished for it. Now Conquistador is now a dead card. Now I summon out the Condemned Witch. The reason why I summoned it out, I can't remember. It's because he still has that summon limit on the field, so it really limits me on what I can do here. And when he tries to do something, I try to negate it. And now, because he got rid of his own summon limit, I am now able to get out Lopter. Lopter now got out the Nidhogg, and he summoned out the token, so yeah, that's not going to fly. I'm immediately getting rid of that. Here's a funny interaction here. Notice that when he Nibiru'd, his Krishna Clifforbrax stayed on the field. That's because that was mid-interaction with the Nidhogg. Nidhogg negates the summon, so the monster's technically not on the field, so it cannot be tributed by the Nibiru, but Nibiru can still be activated within that same chain link because we're still in spell speed 2. That's why that can happen, alright guys? And now he had to give me, he Nibiru'd me twice already and put me under summon limit, and now I have a 5,200, 5,700 Nibiru Primal Being token. That was pretty rough though, because now I'm actually down to a bit of a slow play, because I'm stuck with just an Ash Blossom to interact, but he doesn't exactly have much either because his Golden Lord has nothing to ditch with it, and he's gonna have to lose his Nibiru token along the way. Now continuing that play, that was pretty big interactions there. Let's continue. Okay, now we get our boss stage. Kind of useless because we already have the boss stage in the field. Now we just run over that token. Golden Lord is not doing that great, but he'll have to get rid of this token very soon. But the moment he draws, unfortunately, I have my field spell still up, and that's going to generate a bunch of tokens. And once we get into the main phase, we're going to have our interaction back. But the problem is I have Hela in my hand, so I have to interact with him with whatever I have in my deck. And I need to fix my hand, so I go with Mardell. Mardell is probably going to go ahead and add the boss quest so that I can put Hela back into the deck. I tried to bait him into actually swinging into the Mardell, but instead he chose the right card, which is the Lopter, because Lopter gives me a much better interaction the turn after. Evenly matched is quite useless. Now we'll go for the boss quest. Boss quest, shuffle stuff back, and let's try to run that over. He's trying to pop my card, and he pops the field spell. That was wacky. That was quite wacky. He could have popped the biggest threat on the field, which would have been the Primal Being. What am I going to do after that? Right now, if you look at my graveyard, if you counted the amount of cards I've used in my extra deck, I've used Har, and I have second Har in hand, so that's pretty much dead. Not going to get another Har. Utgarda's already engraved. He didn't check my graveyard enough, and Nidhogg is here too. So in other words, I only have Naglfar and the Hela, and that's about it. So that's the kind of things that you have to keep track of when you're playing against Generators, because this is the surprise part that where you're going to die. So yeah, the swing went through. I have the Generator boss stage once again, and now I set 3 cards. Now this is even harder to guess, because now I got Hela, and the interaction now can start cycling like crazy. I have everything I need. Hela can get back to Har, and now I'm just playing with my graveyard. Your Eldritch stuff, it's not going to work because I'm going to negate it out of the graveyard. You're going to activate that. I don't really care. You don't have your boss. And now you're going to put out another Sanguine, which is, not sorry, White Destiny, so you can actually change during your turn. So I'm going to activate boss stage just to generate the extra body, and then now that you're chaining to my Generator card, I can make that one actually not go through and make us both draw cards. And now I can play another boss stage. Boss stage, everything is going off. And then we have Naglfar. Now we can tribute to get rid of that, banish it, and now we have 8,000 damage on the field. So that's how this particular game went by. And this was really interesting because there was 2 Nibiru used against you, one during your own turn, one during your opponent's turn, and you got stuck under a summon limit, but you were able to ultimately control them. This is even with the Nibiru. Eating Nibiru is one of the worst things available, but the problem with Nibiruing against like a Generator deck is that the Nibiru token usually gets too big. And if you don't answer it, you don't have an answer for it, you will die. Anyways, that would be the match I had to showcase to you guys on how to win with like Generator. Knowing your timing, knowing your tempo is one of the key things. So the price of victory. Is Generator worth buying into? Is it worth the price of victory to play this at a competitive level? It's up to you to what you think about it. But okay, here's all the cards that I think are the most expensive cards in the entire deck. We have a bunch of Gearzoos. We have to have at least 2 to 3 Gearzoos just to start playing. You need 2 to 3 of these cards. I borrowed 2 of these from Nishi, so shout out to you, Nishi. And this is just the starting opening play. Next, you need a copy of Mardell. This was, I can't, short printed in the set of Mystic Fighters. It's about $20. Just this chunk itself is almost like 80. Then you have Lopters. I don't know the price of these. Are these like down to like 10, 5 to 10-ish yet? I'm not too sure, but you still need like maybe 20 bucks here. Then you have the boss stages. The stages are also not cheap. Like the field spells, also short printed. You got to pick up 3 to play the deck competitively. And the rest of the investment is coming from the extra deck. You have to have a BLS. You'd be crazy to play this deck without BLS because you're gonna lose to the dinosaur matchup. So this is another like what, $60, $80? Then we have Link Cross, about 20 bucks. IP Masquerena, 50-ish, maybe 40-ish, 50-ish. And then we have Axis Code Talker. This is about like 80, 90. And then we have an IP Masquerena. You don't really need this one, so you can probably cut this. But all in all, just this chunk here is close to $400 to $500 to $600. Just this chunk of the deck. And if you were just to spend $300 on your Eldritch cards, then you basically have most of the Eldritch core already. So this is, not including the rest of the deck that you probably still have to pick up. It's up to you of how you want to invest your money. This one, you're spending a lot more money on mid-range cards, and I guess to some degree, a lot of the extra deck cards you can kind of put into another deck. So you're investing mainly into these cards that probably will last a lot longer. That's my opinion there. But for the rest of this stuff, it's really centered around just the deck if you really want to play it. I guess you can take the Gearzoos and you maybe switch it over to like a Mech Knight Orcus deck, but aside from that, all the other cards, they're Generators. And once Generators aren't popular, they probably will tank a bit in price. So there's my 2 cents on that. If you guys enjoyed this deck profile, learned a bit about the tempo, how to control the timing against your opponent, hit that thumbs up button, hit subscribe, ding the notification bell, and I appreciate all you Patreons out there for supporting this channel. You guys are the ones that are keeping me running right now because I am just going insane these days, and without you guys supporting, I don't know if I could even keep this up, guys. So you guys are the reason why I'm still around. So thumbs up to you guys. Thanks a lot. And I'll see you guys in the next one.